When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves.
And that's New York City Democrat Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani vowing to seize property from owners that the city determines have failed to upkeep their buildings. It's part of Mamdani's housing plan to build 200,000 new subsidized homes and preserve another 200,000 over the next decade at the cost of $22 billion. Meanwhile, in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is proposing property tax relief for residents that would raise the homestead exemption from $50,000 to $250,000, which he says would eliminate property taxes for some 60% of Florida homeowners. DeSantis is also calling a special session for Florida's state legislative session tomorrow, which, if approved, would put the measure on the ballot this November. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive live is the 46th governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. Governor, great to have you this morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, what a contrast looking at what you're doing in Florida and what they're doing in New York. Walk us through your housing plan and why this exemption lift is so important in terms of property values and taxes.
Well, Maria, at the state level, we're one of the lowest, if not lowest, tax states in the country. No income tax, generous exemption on our sales tax for core items. We've eliminated taxes like business rent and all that, and we're proud of that. And our spending has reflected it. I'm going to sign a budget later this month or next month that will represent 4 straight years of spending reductions in the state of Florida, and we're very proud of that. But at the local level, which is where the property tax revenue goes, we've gone from local governments taking $32 billion in 2019 in taxes to now $60 billion. That's almost 100% increase in revenue. And look, part of it is people have moved here. Part of it is that property values have gone up. But homeowners need relief. And so it's my view that if you are a Florida resident and you have a homestead, we want that to be tax-free. And so that's our vision. That represents about 30% of the overall property tax revenue because they still tax investment property, commercial property. And so this ballot measure will do an opening salvo of raising it, the exemption to $250, adjusted for inflation, so they can't play games. That will be 60% of Florida homesteaders tax-free. Then as they raise it, the legislature will be able to raise that and have a process to do that. Once you get to 500,000 limit, that's 92% of homeowners, and then on it goes from there. But if we don't give homeowners relief, Maria, by 2032, they're going to be taking in $83 billion. So that would mean $32 billion in 2019. 13 years later, it goes to $83 billion. That is not sustainable. And so this is really a historic opportunity to have more money in people's pockets and to actually have their home be their private property that the government just can't use as a piggy bank.
Well, this is incredible. And, you know, with all of these tax attractions that have attracted so many people to Florida, a lot of people are wondering, how do you do it? I mean, you know, you've got critics there saying local governments will have to make up the lost revenue somewhere. So how do you do that? If you've got no income tax, you're cutting property taxes, possibly eliminating them. Where are you getting the money to fund government and everything else, all the other services?
Well, so, you know, we're focusing on homestead. Obviously, they tax property that are non-homestead, residential, Airbnb, Canadian snowbirds, commercial. That's a lot of money that they have. And so even if we eliminated homestead revenue entirely, that would just put their budgets back to like 2021, 2022 levels. But we're phasing it in, so it's a very, I think, manageable process. So I don't think you need to, quote, make up. I think they should start figuring out ways to change their spending so that taxpayers benefit. However, in our proposal, because we have surplus at the state level, we are creating a fund that will be able to issue grants to local governments. So if you really say, you know, you need help with a fire or sheriff's department or education, we'll have grants that we're going to be able to do that for this period. But what's going to happen is this is going to increase the economic base of all these local areas because people are going to have more money in their pocket. They are going to start getting more revenue from existing taxes without having to add new taxes, and they're going to end up in a very stable situation very shortly. And not even going to need this state money. But what they're not going to be able to do is go from $60 billion in revenue to $83 billion over the next 5 years. We can't afford that to happen. So it really represents a big, I think, benefit to the taxpayer, but it does represent a spending restraint on local governments. I mean, look, we've had inflation, we've had population growth, but look at Florida's state budget. We're doing massive things. Everglades restoration is the largest environmental restoration in the history of the U.S. Massive infrastructure investments, increasing teacher pay. We're doing all of that, and yet we're still reducing our overall budget. So it can be done. And I'm not saying $32 billion, even if you assume they were spending everything right, it would have gone up because of inflation, but not to $60 billion.
So, I mean, this is the classic example of just managing budgets well. I mean, versus other poorly run states. Compare your budget process to, for example, New York or even New York City.
So our budget in Florida with 23.5 million people is less than the budget of New York City, which, you know, has 8 million people. It's a big city, but a lot less than the whole state of Florida. New York State's budget is well over twice as large as Florida's budget. I think New York's budget's like 270 billion. You know, our budget has been basically around 117 billion, give or take a little bit, for the last 4 years. And so we have, I think we have 4 million more people than New York State does now. New York used to have a lot more than Florida, and so we're doing it. And we have either the lowest or second lowest per capita spending of any state in the country. And one of the things I'm proud of is that if you take all of Florida's debt that we've accumulated since statehood in the 1840s, just since I've been governor, we've retired 50% of that debt through our aggressive debt repayment policies. So it can be done. And I think what happens is when you do it right, when you respect taxpayers, it creates a good harmony in the economy where people are more apt to want to come here. They're going to be more apt to invest here. And then you can even lower tax rates. I think the New Yorks of the world, they're in a vicious cycle. They have a shortfall, so they go back and try to jack up taxes. That causes their economic base to constrict because people react negatively to it. Then they got to go back to the well again. Well, you can't keep doing that vicious cycle.
Well, that's exactly what we're seeing in California as well. I want to take a break and talk about all those tech entrepreneurs and investors that have moved to Florida. We've got more with Governor Ron DeSantis when we come right back here on Sunday Morning Future. Stay with us. So are you happy with the way the Clarity Act is turning out?
No. No, because it allows them to effectively pay interest on deposits, stable coins or something like that, without the protection that they should have. And it doesn't do anything for AML BSA. It has almost no legal protections. So no, the banks will not accept it that way.
They won't accept
the ABA, the small banks, the credit unions, it's not just the big guys. I'm not worried about stablecoin, but if it happened, I'm telling you, I would have nothing to do with it, and it would eventually blow up on its own. Okay, but that's my personal thing. But I do understand the concern of all the other banks. So,
well, the markup is coming. I mean, what are you going to do about it?
It is. We'll fight it. If we lose, we lose, and we'll live.
Yeah. Okay.
But it will be fought. This will not be. No one's going to bow down to this guy, okay, or that company. And he's the only one. Yeah. And he's spending hundreds of millions of dollars in Washington this thing.
He said he's representing the whole industry.
Full of
And welcome back. That was JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon with me this week on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business, pushing back on the Senate's plans to move the Clarity Act forward, which may include the ability for crypto companies like Coinbase and its CEO Brian Armstrong, who he just referred to pay rewards to people and companies who keep money on crypto platforms, which the banks say is unfair and could potentially threaten traditional savings accounts at FDIC-insured banks. I'm back now with the 46th governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who has been overseeing a massive movement of high earners, companies, tech founders, investors, and startups all to Florida because of attractive policy. Governor, how important is it when you see these billionaires saying, bye-bye Florida, bye-bye New York, bye-bye California with your billionaires tax, I'm setting up a second headquarters in Florida? What has that meant for the state?
Well, I can tell you we're getting a lot of help with some of these leftist politicians in these other jurisdictions. You've chronicled it for years when I've been on about what's happened out of the Northeast. But I will tell you, in the last 9 months, the amount of wealth we've seen move from California simply because of the threat of this wealth tax has been unprecedented, certainly in Florida's history, but I would say probably in American history if you look at the type of people who have done it, and it's for good reason. They want to tax 5% of wealth. They claim it's billionaires, but these taxes will apply to people who are less than that. But even if it's just the high people, they're taxing your voting rights in a company. You may not even own the equity, and they're going to impute value to that. Then you're going to have to just write them a check, and then what are they going to do with that money? They're going to give it to public employee unions who run the state of California. So you can understand why people wouldn't want to be subjected to that. So we've seen that in a really big way. I mean, very, very significant people. And I think we have a good environment. I'm proud of what we've done. Don't get me wrong. Rule of law, low crime, education choice, no income tax, all that's important. But we are having help because they're doing destructive policies, and when people react negatively to them, they go back to the well and just do it again.
Unbelievable. And of course, the election coming up in November. Governor, you haven't publicly endorsed anybody. Are you going to stay neutral, or are you going to get behind somebody in a big way going into the governor's election this November?
Well, I've got to deal with this property tax. I've got to deal with the budget. And I've always told people, I typically don't do the political stuff prior to me getting all the ducks in a row that I need to make sure that the state is going well. So we'll see how that all shakes out over the next couple of weeks. But I will say this. When I got elected governor in 2018, Florida was a swing state. It was the swing state.
Wow.
1-point races. We had 300,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. I won narrowly initially. Now we have 1.5 million more registered Republicans than Democrats. And so that's a sea change politically that I don't think has any peer in the modern history of this country. And part of it is because I think we've led the way on so many policies and people have responded. And so that's kind of the landscape that we have going into November. As you know, we did do a congressional redistricting map. There was a need to do that based on recent Supreme Court decisions. We sent a map to the legislature. They passed it a few weeks ago. A lot of crowing, saying, oh, they're going to be sued, all this stuff. And guess what? Of course we got sued. And the judge ruled in our favor. And so that map is sticking for the 2026 cycle. So we'll see what happens. But I think we've got a lot of great momentum as a state. Clearly, politically, we've seen major change in a positive direction. And 2024 presidential election, not any money was spent in Florida at all. And I can tell you, having lived here, we used to be inundated, but the Democrats realized they couldn't even compete. So that's a huge story in and of itself.
It sure is. You've done a great job, Governor. So is there any unfinished business before you leave office that you want to tell us about? And what role do you see yourself playing in the Republican Party post-governorship?
Well, yes, we do have unfinished business. I mean, clearly the property tax is going to be put before voters. And if the voters give 60%, then I'll have to work with the new leaders of the legislature in November, December to do an implementing legislation to implement that property tax plan, which will be very beneficial to a lot of people. And so we're already obviously thinking about that, and we'll be ready to go. We also just have, you never know what Mother Nature throws your way. We put a lot of emphasis on hurricane preparation. We did not have to use that preparation last year. That was a welcome relief. We'll knock on on wood and hope that happens again. And we always hope for that, but we are prepared to be there if people need us in those instances. So I would just say stay tuned on that. And we've got other things up our sleeve over the next 6 months, and we'll do that when it's appropriate. So stay tuned.
What about your future, Governor? Would you work in the Trump administration?
I've got to do my job here. I really don't even think about it because, quite frankly, I've got a lot of irons in the fire. And I think if you're out there peacocking about doing other things, then it's like, well, wait a minute, we want property tax relief. We want all these things. And so that's just typically how I've done things. You kind of take it a day at a time. But, we've worked very good with President Trump. He's been amazing for Florida, just on Everglades. No one even talks about it. And it's literally the biggest restoration in history. And that would not have been possible had he not supported us.
Fair enough. Amazing stuff here. Governor, great to see you this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.